Hello, everyone. Good evening, and welcome to tonight's session of Unplugged with Ross. My name is Roslyn Miner. I am really excited about tonight's topic because sometimes, on one hand, it's deemed controversial, on the other hand, it is a good, icebreaker, depending on where you're sitting, which side of the forum you're at. Tonight's topic is Gen Z is not your enemy, thriving together at work. And I'm joined tonight by my friend and colleague Desmond McCullough, who is the COO at the design, has had a really flourishing career ranging from automotive to banking, aviation, and he leads or brings a practical people first approach. He has dealt with various generations within the workforce, and he is keen at managing and building effective teams. So tonight, Desmond will help us not debunk really, but cover the topic of tonight, which is Gen Z is not your enemy, thriving together at work. Desmond, karibu sana.
Thank you so much. As you're reading that particular introduction, I was like, is this how it feels when an interviewer on the other side plays back the answers to your question of tell me something about yourself? And then, but thank you for having me, Rose. Thank you.
Don't start to tell me about yourself because it can be a long debate here. So, as is the norm, let's start tonight's topic with a bit of statistics or interesting facts that support the topic of the day. The first being, according to Gallup State of the Global Workplace 2026, only 20% of employees globally are engaged at work, down from 23% in 2022, making a second consecutive decline. So, question is, if only 1 in 5 employees globally are engaged, are we sure that Gen Z is the problem, or are they just refusing to quietly participate in systems many people have already disengaged from? Another interesting statistic is another Gallup study, only 23% of remote capable Gen Z workers prefer fully remote work, compared to 35% of older generations. I'd not be surprised that the 35% is full of millennials. So the question is, if Gen Z actually values in-person connection more than we assume, what are we misreading about this generation? So they actually prefer in-person interactions. Another study shows that 27% of Gen Z workers reported feeling lonely a lot of the previous day, nearly double Gen X and close to triple baby boomers. So what we need to ask ourselves is, are some of the behaviors we label as entitlement, disengagement, or instability actually symptoms of disconnection? So quite interesting, a couple of interesting stats or facts coming through. Desmond, what are your initial thoughts on that?
My initial thoughts are I think it's not a thing about pointing the finger to one generation. I think to kick off this conversation, it's very live to appreciate that back in 2007, there is a research that was done by some organization I think called PEW. And in that particular research, they were talking about the fact that in every decade, there is always a switch up or let's call it an evolution that the next generation will be pointed fingers at, they are this or they are that. So they're saying when it was a time for Gen Xers, they were called slackers. When it was time for millennials, they were we were called, so now I can identify as one, we were called entitled job hoppers. And then today it's Gen Zs. At least they have maintained the entitlement in the title. However, I think the key thing is through and through, the change has always happened. So my first response is it's just a thing about it's only the cast that has changed, but the transitions remain the same. And we will be able to see it even for future generations when things continue to flow. The interesting question then would be, then what is remaining constant? And my argument then would be that there is nothing wrong with the generation. I think the thing that is wrong is that organizations keep being surprised by the change in generations, through and through, which I think is a much more valuable conversation to have than anything else.
You've touched a couple of very important points. So, on one hand, we have same script, different cast. Makes me think of the Deborah Cox, Whitney Houston song. But
Mhm.
that's besides the point.
Your
Yeah,
age is showing. Your age is showing.
we're sorry. But at the same time, you actually touched at, the initial thought, because is it really a Gen Z problem? Because we saw it with the millennials. Only this time, it's more tech driven. These kids are very tech savvy and less tolerant. These guys speak their mind.
Yeah.
So, are we really looking at a Gen Z problem? So, to start us off, yes, we've seen it with the millennials. What are we repeating? You know, why? What haven't we learned? Because it's generational. It's one to the next to the next. I mean, we're currently talking about Gen Zs. The next will be the alphas, and the next will be beta. God knows next will be Charlie. But until then, what is it that we are missing? Because, yeah, the song is getting a tad too old.
What is it that we are missing? So, linked to your point around, as we look at the trends, we will notice that a couple of less and less people are looking at employment. And I was listening to another podcast, the other day for, um, and some professor and, Simon Sinek, and she brought out this very interesting line of thinking, and she said there was a breakdown that started maybe in the early 80s. Okay. And this breakdown was, if we look back at how our parents brought us up and how even their parents brought them up, is there was an understanding that you will go to school, then after you go to school, you will finish, you will go to uni. After you will go to uni, you will get a job. Then after you get a job, and that's how you will be able to afford a car, or that's how you'll be able to buy a house. That breakdown started way early in the 80s, where we now started saying that you can go to school, yes. However, that does not guarantee you that you will get a job. You can also get a job, yes, but that does not guarantee you that you will be able to even afford the lifestyle that initially looked like it was almost guaranteed. Now, people started to sort of disengage from employment because they realized that it is not giving them an opportunity to earn what has been talked about or has been promised all through, right? And that's where now you saw a lot of now the millennials starting to switch up and trying to do multiple jobs. This is where they started small on, I will do this work and then I will have a side hustle. In my opinion, I think that's where it started, because we still were framed in the mindset that we still have to make it in one way or the other, but it is not looking like we're going to make it. So let's see how two or multiple income sources will will come. Okay. As this happened, also different people started seeing people being very aware. Now, this is now the entry of the internet, and then this is where the entry of social media came through. So, access to information now became more live to the generations compared to what it was before. As I was listening to this uh, podcast, this guy was saying that, initially we only used to get news from specific news channels, and but that was when we grew up, that was the thing. But I want you to shift focus to now. How many news channels are there even now? Multiple. And that's not even including the ones that are available on social media. Okay. Anyway, I am just trying to put the narration on what the patterns have changed. Access to more information, help people to be more aware, and people now are more driven than they see. Oh, I can now make it this way, and I cannot see it this way, that way. Okay. Now, with this awareness, the millennials, who are now the people on the spot, started to notice that these workplaces can be better compared to how my parents were. Now, in my opinion, I'd say I know my rights started from a bit a point that point. Okay, so now the people started being entitled job hoppers because now they're more self-aware, and then they knew that there are certain things that they cannot tolerate. Okay, now that generation shifted, and then it moves to this new generation. Now, this new generation with multiple channels where I am getting information from, with social media playing a very big role, and then with the belief that what is true is what I know. The thing about I know my truth. So I know my truth and I can stand for myself. So as you can see, it's just circumstances that have changed, but the cast remains the same. And organizations are the ones that now just always look like they're surprised when the cast changes. However, if you looked at how things have moved on, then you'll be like, yeah, this is the direction. Now, to learn why the Gen Zs will be walking away from job opportunities and telling you in your face more around I know my rights is because initially, go to school, go to uni, earn a living, cater for your life. Now then it came a situation where now you are multiple jobs, etc like that. Social media came, and that with a nice phone camera, with a nice ring light, with my own time, I can be able to earn so much more compared to this individual who you have to do your 8 to 5 or things like that. So this generation now is more open to do solopreneurship and not have to deal with people and things like that. So what is the motivation for me to come to your office if a ring light is going to give you way more than what you're giving me as an organization? That is where may I place the thing that the pattern is there. It's something to appreciate. It's something but the script has always remained the same.
You've touched a couple of interesting things because, on one hand, millennials were not very big on a gig economy. Gen Zs, on the other hand, gig economy is number one, employment is number two. As a millennial, when I look back, I just happened to go to the old school 844 system. In as much as we were taught arts and music, we were not groomed to actually grow those talents, the natural talents. Unlike the Gen Zs, where they embrace more talent and the artistic side of things. With millennials, we're talking more to do with work-life balance and more in an office workspace environment and a workspace environment. Gen Zs, on the other hand, it's work-life integration, less to do with, the typical 9 to 5, the typical you're seated in the office. They believe you can get work done anywhere at any time. And yes, the script remains constant. The cast is the one that changes, and it's changing based on the environment that we are having. So as organizations, I think one of the things that a lot of organizations are struggling with, especially when it comes, for example, organizational design, is we still operating on we've always done things XYZ. But yet on the other hand, we are talking about lack of innovation. So you cannot wish to retain status quo and still get the innovation. So I think one of the things is we are so stuck up to the old way of doing things that we are missing opportunities. And by missing those opportunities, it's very easy for us to blame a generation instead of looking inwardly to what is not working. And actually, that touches on, the labeling. Millennials, yes, we were told we are very, ambitious. Someone is asking you for high salary at XYZ. And yes, the same is applying with Gen Zs. But the question is, why are these generations demanding for better when it comes to work environments? And we're not saying that everything that is being demanded for needs to be provided for, but we also need to relook how we've been operating. What are your thoughts on that?
I think the demand is being driven by a couple of things, but I can point out one or two. So the demand for better, or the demand for certain things being branded as a certain generation. There are 2 points I can look at. One, I think that we cannot ignore the fact that exposure plays a very big part. To my point around, now you have 15 million and one news outlets, you have social media playing a big part, and you have now people being more exposed around what mental wellness is now about, and people choosing themselves. I think that's one. Then the second thing is, I think the thing that drives a lot of the different generations to demand for better is when we have noticed that job security more and more becomes something that a lot of the employers can never guarantee, Now, the millennials noticed that, and that is why they said, okay, so I will do multiple income streams so that I survive that. Now, the Gen Zs are like, you know what, let me not even get into this particular engagement. Let me work for myself, because you can never ask me for, I mean, whatever happens for me, I will only be the one affected, right? The insecurity that have come up, or the fact that different employers have continuously, and look at the number of jobs that have been lost between even last year and this year because of something that has happened from a global scale. They continue. Right now, even the talk is that AI is going to wipe out all of us, and we will not have jobs. So constantly, that job insecurity is what pushes guys to demand for more. I had something, and because of the boldness of how Gen Zs are, someone argued. Initially, millennials will be like, you know what, me, I will just work, and then I will show my work for it, and then you will pay me based on this. Okay. Gen Zs were like, no, let's do this. Give me the money now. Let me, and then me, I will work for it. You will see for it. And then now you're in an organization, and then you're like, how can I give you money now? And then you're not showing me anything. But it's because we're not guaranteed for tomorrow. So just give me the money now. Let me cash in now. Then tomorrow will sort itself. If I have it now, I can deal with it now and then move on. So, to my point, I think the push and the fact that we can no longer guarantee job security continues to push us to demand the different workforces that we are working with, or the different generations that we are working with, to demand for different things. Yeah.
You mentioned something that just reminded me. So I know when YOLO came about, and when we were at the peak of millennial discussions, or people would go, they're not even keen on pensions. They are not keen on long-term saving. And these guys are like, hold up, I'm here today and now.
Yes.
So let me live my life now. But you see, different people will argue out differently, because yes, it's good and very important to prepare for the future, but we also need to, it's a very delicate balance of the now and the future, particularly in a workplace environment. So
Yeah.
at what point do generational labels stop being insight and start becoming lazy management, because we can only have as much Gen Z, millennial, X, whatever discussion, those labels, we can only have that discussion to a certain extent. When do we start, calling out the lazy management?
Mm, mm. Oh, that's a very nice question. So, at what point do we stop using the labels? I think the first place to stop using the labels is to say something along the lines of Gen Zs are like this, and then you stop there. That in itself is the point we need to stop. I think we need to stop being lazy at just providing the label and not providing the insights, or providing the label and not knowing or accepting that there is a slow reaction in how certain organizations are evolving to accommodate the change in the landscape. I think that's the point we need to stop. A 24-year-old in Nairobi and a 24-year-old in Japan have different context. So you cannot now use one blanket explanation across both of them.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I think just because they share a birth year, there is a bit more that you need to add before you just throw in the label.
You've mentioned something very critical, not just a blanket solution. It has to be contextualized to the local, you know, like localization, so to speak. And if I may use an example through workforce planning, any HR that is currently doing workforce planning, you're not just looking at the now, you're actually looking at the future. And the decisions that you make now determine the success of the future. And that future is actually driven by the strategy of the organization. Where do we want to go? Do we have the talent to support that? If we don't have the talent to support that, how can we upskill? Do we have probabilities of roles that will become redundant? If yes, how can those people be reskilled to take up other opportunities, etc., etc.? So yes, we really need to step away from just the labeling, because we are clouding our judgment on how we are operating long term.
Mm.
So the next question is, are we blaming Gen Z for behaviors that are actually a reaction to broken workplace systems? Because they're very good at highlighting what's not working. They're very, they speak out, and they're not afraid to point out things that are not working.
Yeah, I think yes. I think there is a blame because at any particular point when something breaks, you just have to look for like a scapegoat, and you're like, yeah, you are the guys who caused this particular problem, and that's a very unfair position because, for example, the generations before, there's a study I think that was done by Microsoft or something along those lines, way back, that talked about quiet quitting. Quiet quitting has been there from I think the age of the millennials, right? Now, the trend on TikTok around quiet quitting was so live in 2022, I think, making us think and feel like it is this generation that now is quitting, and they are saying I cannot stand for this, etc, etc. Yet we forget that as a bad behavior. So in this particular case, we will label quiet quitting a bad behavior. Is something that has been happening or happened a decade ago. The fact that you're seeing it on TikTok right now is just that it has been amplified and more people are talking about it. So it's not about the same thing. It's about the system from before. So if it produces a different outcome or it produces the same output, should we not focus on fixing the bug that's in the system rather than moving the players that are in the system, right? Because as the bad behavior, it has been there throughout. And the fact that it's just being amplified, it's just providing more, insights to it, but the problem has not been resolved in terms of, so why are people leaving? And there are different reasons why people are leaving. I think the fact that people no longer get fulfillment for the things that they're doing could be a reason. And if you look at the different theories that make us move from one career to the other, those have evolved. So the fact that I'm not getting my satisfaction from this, that's why possibly I want to drop out. So if you're not fixing the bug, then you cannot say that this behavior is attributed to this specific generation.
Now, if I may be the devil's advocate for 2 seconds.
Okay.
Currently, digital transformation has been a big buzzword, 2022, 23, 24, you name it. And the adoption of AI has been on another level, which has led to a lot of people losing jobs. But then the same organizations that have let go of, huge numbers of employees because of them adopting AI have also come to the realization that AI was actually not the solution all along. Because you failed to admit the issues that you had within the organizations, AI or not. You failed to rectify those bugs within the system. Because AI or any, digital transformation that is coming through should actually help you elevate. But if you have a broken system full of bugs, AI is only going to magnify that problem even further. Would you agree with that assessment, or what do you think?
I think I agree with you. So to a certain extent, I agree with you on the point of, yes, the different organizations, and yes, and this is a very controversial topic, the different organizations that are saying, or they are already making the decision around laying off people with the belief that AI has come and it is going to replace all of them, I think are jumping the gun. In my opinion, I think it's too early to make that particular call. Why? Because on one end, I think there's a lot of things that are already also changing in the AI landscape that it has not reached its full potential. So making a decision now is a bit premature. That's the first thing that I think I agree with you. And to support that, I'll bring a different example. The 9 to 5 platform was the 9 to 5 hours of work was designed back during World War II. Okay. And then, since we did not have any changes, let's say COVID came back. Okay. COVID came and COVID pushed all of us to go and work remotely. And we were productive post-COVID for those number of years. Then once we got the green light that COVID no longer exists, what did organizations do? They told everyone, please go back to the office because, yeah. But that decision was not based on anything. It was just based on, this is the comfort that we are used to, and this is what we will go back to. Not based on any data, and it's just the norm. So to your point, yes, I think there is a bit that organizations need to play to try and adjust to prepare more to fit in. There's a bit more work that we need to do in the organizations that we work for to try and dig a bit deeper to understand just that, rather than just trying to make a decision just because everyone is doing it.
So the next question would be, how can we help organizations evolve? Because changing generations will always be there. Everyone will always have an opinion from one generation to the next. And before, a generation settles in and there is that good binding that people gel, there will always be that friction, and that friction can either be used to people's, organizations' advantage, or not. So how can we help organizations evolve and step away from the typical, these guys don't want to work, these guys are lazy, these guys, someone does not have experience? And I'm not saying that these things are not true. In some cases they are,
Mhm.
but we are also dealing with a generation that you will find a 22-year-old or a 23-year-old who is so good at coding because they started coding when they were really young. So they're like those kids we say, you are, you know, 18 years old with like 30 years experience because you started young. We started molding those kids young. So let's not expect that, higher salaries are pegged on age, but it's experience that is on the table. So how can we use that to advantage? How can we help organizations evolve?
I think we can prepare and we can help organizations evolve by, I think one area I can think of is how we can handle the point about leadership development and them being equipped with skills and know-how on how to manage this generation that's coming. I think that's one area that stands out. I'll use a personal example for that. If I look at I as a parent, and there is as a millennial parent, knowing how my how me my parents behaved with me, there is no way whatsoever that I would walk up to my dad or my mom and I told them that, by the way, may I think I want to be a DJ. That's not a conversation that we would be having. Okay. Now, right now, my son can come to me and tell me that, may I want to be a DJ. Now, I have had some bit of time to try and prepare and see how the jobs in this environment are. I have done a bit of research. I have been able to learn. Like I can say, yes, being a DJ is not a bad idea. By the way, it is possible you can make it. There's DJs who make mad cash, but that has come through because I've taken some time to learn about the craft and not just completely disregard. So, using that particular skill set, I can say for organizations, for them to prepare for the change in generation, I think there's a part or there's a role leadership development plays so that it prepares you for how to manage these individuals. All these individuals, because those are the next ones that are coming, and we are not going to escape from it.
So we have to be very intentional. We have to realize that there's what has worked over the years
Yes.
that we can build on, and there's what we actually need to switch up. Because if you fail, we
Yes.
will have like a Kodak moment. You were once a really big organization, and then digital cameras came in, and off you went.
Again.
So if you were to be really honest about this, and you've spoken about the need for leadership development, are the leaders within the organizations equipped to lead Gen Zs? Are they exposed? Are we exposing them? Or what advice, or yes, what advice can we give leaders that have, let's say, a Gen Z team to get the best out of them? Because they're here to stay.
Mm. Whew, that's a good question. I think the advice I would give any leader is, you need to understand that there's a difference, or that there's something called discipline and then there's something called rigidity. Okay. So you have to understand on how to build each of those disciplines so that each of those items so that you can be able to, as a leader, be able to manage or guide this particular individual. Discipline is about commitment to the outcome. Okay. Then rigidity is just about your attachment to the methods. Okay. So to break it down, we need this particular outcome. So, case in point, attendance is always a very sensitive topic. So you need someone to come in at a specific time and be productive over X number of or to give you some point of productivity over a certain period. Okay. Now, you need to explain and you need to walk everyone through the journey why it is important for you to be able to come in at clock in at a certain time and be productive at a certain time with facts, of course. Yeah, like that morning hours is when we are most productive, or whatever works for you. Again, morning hours we will not come in early because our clients come in at 10. So if our clients come in at 10, why should I make you come to the office at 8 o'clock? Now, coming to the office at 8 o'clock is a rigidity thing. Okay. However, if I am practical, I can say, now I think we can strike a balance and say, then if all our clients normally stream in from 10:30 or from 11, then a nice balance is 9:30, for example. Okay, because our methods dictated that we start 8 to 5. But now the environment that we are operating from requires us to be more flexible. And the flexibility is also what the person coming in also is yearning. I don't have to wake up very early in the morning and sit in traffic because just for the sake of ticking a box. So for me, I would say something to really develop of something is to just distinguish how I can build more on discipline and how I can distinguish and be more flexible.
You said something very, very key, and the fact that today the world is pretty much a village. You will have an organization based out here in Nairobi that has, either you have colleagues based on in South Africa, they
Mm,
are 1 hour behind someone in Nairobi. If you have colleagues based out in Mauritius, they or Dubai, they are an hour ahead. If you have colleagues based out in India, I believe right now they're 3 hours ahead. So you really need to have an operating system or a way of working that actually works for your organization and not just replicating because you saw company X work as XYZ. A fintech cannot work as like a bank. Those
mhm,
are two different environments in as much as they're in the financial world. So organizations, what you're trying to say is organizations need to evolve with the times and have solutions that apply to them and not use generational excuses because you're just trying to pass the buck.
mhm.
So the question is then, because Gen Zs within the workplace, they actually make you to become more aware. So if previously the organization has been very hierarchical, some people will feel like they are losing control. Some
Mm,
people will feel that they're losing that predictability. Like how our parents, depending with which generation you are born. I was born in a generation whereby what your parents said
mm,
goes.
mm,
It's not debatable, and that's the gospel truth. We
mhm.
have a generation that is getting us to rethink how we operate as an organization and how we succeed. How can we get a balance of the two?
How can we get a balance of the two? I think how I've understood that particular question is, so I think we have a generation that their motivation is slightly different, and sometimes it clashes with what the organizations are. Like for example, at some point there was this really good trend about this particular organization does not align with my energies and with my aura. And to your question around self-awareness, there is everything legit about wanting a purpose-driven career, something that you can feel you're connected with, and something that you feel that it works for you. I think the balance comes in to appreciate that one, alignment to your purpose does not happen on day one. It needs a bit of time to be built. It needs a bit of time to also, just the same way you have had your journey to arrive at the place where you identify that this is your purpose, is the same way you and the organization need to also have that particular journey. Okay, so it needs a bit of time for you to arrive at that particular balance, or you to come to that particular balance. I think it needs a particular time. Sometimes describing certain behaviors as toxic, for example, and this is now the balance. Now the balance I'm trying to explain now is from the organization side. Sometimes when organizations read some descriptions or that have been put out there that this is how you operate, and this is being called toxic, they how they react to that sometimes is very disproportionate, instead of just picking it that it is the person raising or saying the loudest voice that that's the person who has the problem. I think also appreciating that what you see as a red flag could be signaling something deeper that needs to be managed. So both players have a point to play for us to be able to bring the balance in terms of, so now me, as I align my purpose to this particular organization, I appreciate that it's going to take some time. As an organization, I also have to hold space and appreciate that for us to achieve this, then I don't have to call everything that you shout about a red flag. I think it's time for me also to appreciate that this could also mean something else.
I like the fact that you, on one hand, we're also calling out, you know, bits and bobs that also, are a red flag when it comes to Gen Z. If I may have a bit of bias on that, because if you're not self-aware, if you're always demanding that what you want is the only solution that can work within the organization, it also speaks of your rigidity also as a Gen Z person, about your failure to adapt to, if you've had it smooth, life ain't smooth. Life is not going to be served to you on a silver platter. So if you find an environment that is working in a certain way, take the time to understand the process, take the time to understand the policies, take the time to understand why things are done the way they are done. And if something is still not sitting right within you, then you, as a mature person, you find a way of bringing it up as a constructive conversation, not as, getting those engagement surveys and then just doing everything crazy on
Mm,
that,
mm,
or you go to and the name of that platform has just escaped me, and go do a review about the
Glass,
organization. Thank you,
Glassdoor.
Glassdoor.
Mm,
Yeah, or you go to Glassdoor and highlight everything negative about the organization. That organization has gotten to where it's gotten to because of the frameworks, the policies,
mm,
the boundaries that it has built. Is it perfect? No. But is there room for improvement? Yes. So you can actually take that as an opportunity for you to help the system improve instead of dragging an organization down, because what you would deem is toxic might be the best employer for another candidate or a Gen Z.
yeah,
True.
yeah. I agree. I agree. I totally agree. There's something said like a lot of these organizations carry a scar tissue. So it's not that they sometimes they have not even tried what you are recommending or what is being the issue or what is being complained about now. It is highly likely sometimes that through their institutional knowledge or experience, it has it has appeared or it has come up in a way. So when you request for it, before everyone just says yes, they will just go back and say, I mean, the last time we tried this, this did not go very well. So let's just hold off on that. So you interpreting that as these guys are just do not work for us, and this and this and this is also not being very fair. I think, if anything, organizations remain as the people who have been beaten multiple times, and they have to prepare every time you try and bite them in one way or the other.
True. Now, if we were to build on that, for a Gen Z who is watching us tonight or will watch later, what advice would you give them on the value of not underestimating experience, context, and organizational memory or institutional knowledge? What would you tell them? What advice would you have for them?
The advice I think I would have is, even in the most difficult things that have happened in the world, they have happened in a certain way, in a certain system. I was interested to learn that in Mandela's book, Long Walk to Freedom, how Nelson Mandela navigated the environment that was then in SA is very similar to what we're seeing now, in terms of this is an individual coming from a different generation and trying to change things in an environment that was not for them at all. Okay. Now, even fighting this environment required that he works with the system that is already been established. And through him working with the system is what saw them being successful. That's not to say that the protests did not play a part in it, but by him respecting and working with the system meant that they would deal with the protests yet, but when it comes to negotiating, they would still call him to the room and tell him, okay, fine, let's talk now. So working with the system also helps, because you will be able to navigate and set foundations how the next generation can also be able to benefit from the steps or from the achievements that you will get.
I hear the value of absolute stakeholder management, knowing the various pillars within or the various roadmaps within an organization and using that roadmap to enable you get a positive response. It's not going to be instant, but you can actually build your boulder really well by getting the facts straight, by getting the right people on your side, getting the relevant buy-in. I think that is something that, regardless of the generation you are in, it's something that we could all benefit from. So
Absolutely.
now, if you look at the workplace environment, generations or not generations, what are the things that we shouldn't change and what are the things that we should change? 'Cause change is the only constant.
What are the things that should remain constant, and what are the things that should change? I think the things that should remain constant is the the belief that systems, or the things and the some of the practices that happened before can remain. Order is important. So systems is, call it policies, call it the way we try and do things, should remain constant, I think. And the cadence to always evolve that to suit the current generation is what can change. But the fact that we still be able to document certain things, I think there's value in that. And the fact that we can still be able to maintain a repository, a policy, or something, that should still remain. The thing that should change, I think, Oh, there's a lot, but I think top of mind, based on also some of the conversations that that we've had before, is the appreciation that we should evolve, and we should evolve based on the learnings, and we should be evolved based on some data points. Now, if the motivation to come to work is different, we need to be able to speak to what that motivation is. And it is hard because you're not going to cater to everyone. However, it is possible that you can be able to make some changes that will definitely be able to impact the majority. And since this is the group that is coming into the workforce, then it makes sense for you to invest in some bit of time to try and make the working environment or the way we do things slightly different so that it is able to accommodate the evolution. Because if we do it now, then this generation will grow up to be the leaders for the places that we work for, and they will be able to do it again, thus breaking the curse that every other generation coming in will be the one that they have a problem.
I couldn't agree more. And I think one thing I would add to what you've said, for me to remain as a constant, is the values. The need for the organization to never forget why it got into the business it's in.
Yeah.
I think the moment you lose that visualization, that goal, you're just playing like everyone else within the market.
Yeah.
I think what we need to change is copying other organizations, copying processes or systems that have worked in other organizations and just copy pasting into yours without understanding why it's working on the others. They'll probably be working with data, they'll probably be working to resolve a problem. But because you're just seeing the end result, you're not seeing the sacrifice that organization made
So sure.
to get to that point. So can we keep our values and can we stop, just copy pasting, from other
Yeah, I agree.
from other places and just thinking it's a plugin.
Yeah.
Normally how, and in consideration all these generations, technology, business environments will be there and will be changing with every passing day. So how can we build a high performing culture without losing, one, our identity, and not reverting back to the comfort of days of old?
How can you build a high performance culture without necessarily reverting back to the thing of this is how we used to do it before, and things like that, if I've gotten you right.
Yeah,
So
absolutely.
there is now there's been an argument around remember the concept that we've already been sold for, that a 9 to 5 thing is what, which dates back in World War II. That is what makes us productive. Okay. There's different people who have even tested a 4-day work week, as an example. And so that there was a jump of about, I think, maybe 40% in terms of productivity because of a 4-day work week. I think this was done someplace in New Zealand or something like that. Now, if you look at this particular concept, it promotes something to do with, like, a work-life balance concept, while at the same time ensuring that you will be able to boost productivity in one way or the other. And if I just imagine how this organization worked, thinking like one of the people who works there, I'm like, so if I kill it Monday to Thursday, I can be able to have a long weekend. I mean, who wouldn't want that in their lives right now? We get so excited when there's a public holiday on Friday, but if we make it a norm, who would not be excited to just have a work week like that? I think that in itself will, like, be able to boost productivity, and you also be able to have people um, embrace a new age of working, right? And that will create a high performance culture by trying out something. Remember, piggybacking on what you've mentioned, we need to get some bit of data around, okay, so if we try it this way, then maybe it will work out this way. Yes. um, and then test it out first to see, okay, maybe there's a day we allowed people not to come in on Saturday because of a Christmas party that we had on Friday, and on Monday people bombed, they didn't even work at all. So we could be having those particular scars, but being able to just try out these some weird ideas, and respecting, I think, the sectors that we work in, and seeing how we can balance it off, that even if you're working for a bank, how can I still recreate a 4-day work week and things like that? You can test out and see against different numbers how productivity will increase, maintaining the same high performance culture, but be able to try out different things. I think that's how I would respond to that.
I like what you say because it's about ensuring there is absolute clarity of the path you want to take. Communication is fully embraced, and people are out here. It's not even risk taking. We are testing our comfort zones. So
Mm,
testing out will actually tell you, no, I don't think this work out better. But if maybe you are to balance it out in this way. And I think
mm,
in such scenarios, people take ownership, and the probability of, say, that initiative being launched, if for it to fail, the probability is highly reduced because
mm,
people feel like, I participated in this, we anticipated this would be a blocker, but this is how we can navigate it. And I think, yes, high performance cultures don't need to be rigid. I think
mm,
what they need is clarity, communication, and avenues to which people can actually get creative, get
mm.
innovative. Yeah. So as we start, we are the tail end. Can't believe the hour is almost up. If you were to do a workforce strategy, I know I mentioned earlier about workforce planning, but if you were to do one now, looking at what the environment looks like today, what would you advocate for that we should keep? And what would you be like, we are not doing this again? Or be a game plan?
I think mine will be very simple. I will borrow from a common saying. This meeting should be an email. Ah,
Agree.
if I was to be given an opportunity to really design how the workforce needs, we sit in time, and everyone I think will agree with me. The amount of time that we sit during meetings to discuss or to agree, or as people nowadays say, to align. I don't like
And
that one.
circle back.
Yeah, I know that one, just send as an email. So I think meetings should be minimal if you want an effective work strategy. I do agree that to a certain extent, there are some that are critical, but we need to start to measure the productivity of these particular meetings against the outcomes and the output that come out of these particular meetings. I think that's the key thing I would speak. That is what my workforce strategy would be changed or would be different.
So meetings, I think personally, I am with you. 1,001%. If it can be an email, please be an email. If it, yes, there are critical meetings, but that's that. Two, for me, would be, are we clear on the strategy? And are we holding the information that is held on the strategy or in the strategy? Because if people do not understand where the organization is going, and then you come back later and say that people are not performing, people are not being productive, you never have any information, say newsletters that actually show performance within the organization, where we are trailing, where we are doing well.
Yeah.
And then a business decision is made, oh, AI is here, there's a lot we can automate, we really don't need all this headcount. Yeah, you're getting it wrong. So I think strategy needs to be, it doesn't matter if you're the CEO or you are the general office lady or gentleman, you need to understand how you are contributing to the success of the organization, so that there's that ownership of
Yeah.
things.
Yeah.
I think for me, another would be, when it comes to talent acquisition, don't just hire for the sake of adding headcount, so that when you're having on your website, we have X number of employees, and then a couple of months down the line, you're letting people go. Hire people that their skill sets are not only needed now, but also in the future. And for those that you have that don't have the skills on the future, please invest in that. Because sometimes people think learning and development is an expense docket. It's not. It is the lifeline of your organization. So yes, some of the bad behaviors we need is, those blanket, policies. Let it be suitable for the organization. Any other that comes to mind for you?
There's something that you mentioned, and I had something. Someone said, since all of us are talking about AI is coming to take all our jobs, then I think a very good business idea is to now start a school where we can all learn prompts, because you see, we still need to create prompts for this AI to work. So I think we can start like a university where you can graduate in like a diploma in prompt generation or something like that. What's my point here? It is supporting your point around there is value in always refreshing what we have. There's value in, even in your talent acquisition strategy, to be able to speak to where we are as an organization, where the technology is, and where this role is coming to plug in and fill. That's one. And then to your point around, if at all we are looking at connecting to the strategy as an individual, then there's a way I also need to see how my purpose connects to your strategy. There's a lot of people right now, if let's say as a business, we were selling phones, and not attacking any business that you look at my profile, but we were selling phones and you have to pay as you use. And then we change and you say, right now we will change from phones and we will now be able to sell alcohol that you can buy and then you pay as you consume. Okay, I think that already exists. My point is, the alcohol are not aligned to my purpose. Okay. So if I understand the strategy and how the organization is flowing and it's been cascaded to me and it's clear, then I get to have an opportunity to make a decision whether I still want to be part of the journey that you're going for, and save you the headache of trying to manage me a few months down the line, now that you have changed the direction the business is going.
I couldn't agree more. Now, final two questions. I don't know if I should combine them, but let me start with the first one.
Okay.
What does Gen Z need to hear that they won't like? So if you were to spit some truths that Gen Zs are not going to like this moment in time, what would that be?
Ooh, now I'll be attacked at some point. And insecurity. So I think The honest truth is we all want to be authentic. We all, this is my truth. This is what I believe in. This is me. But authenticity without competence is just noise. If you cannot back up where your truth is coming from, then those are just stories. Because if I want to move to this particular direction, if I want to move as an organization from point A to point B, there's an appreciation that I have already assessed and put in place how I am going to do that. So if you come and you also say, by the way, this thing is so easy, I can do it. Case in point, maybe everyone believes that right now in the age of social media, everyone can manage a social media platform and an account just because you have the competence of handling your own Instagram account. That's different. You need to also understand the fundamentals that will be able to make you successful when this is given to you as a job. So, yes, the truth that I would like to point out is authenticity without competence is just noise.
And for the record, we are not hating, we are just telling it as it is.
And that can apply to in any generation. You can even
True.
tell a Gen Xer, even as millennials can be told the same thing. So, yes, that can apply in any generation.
Brilliant. So the final question: what do leaders need to hear that they are avoiding? You're going to call out on all sides, so it's not going to be a one-sided thing. So we've
So
said,
there's this thing people say in the office, and I'm sure very many people have heard this before. You know me, when I came up, I did not have these things. And so that's not my fault. that that is not a good workforce strategy. We're operating in a different environment right now. So the fact that you did not have it while you were coming up does not mean that me I don't have it, and it does not mean that right now you can avoid talking about it or you can avoid implementing it just because you did not have it. That's how I would say it.
I don't even think I can top that. You know, no, I can't top that. It's true. Just because you didn't have certain, technology or facilities or the environment you are at is totally different from what it is now, does not give you any right or an excuse to actually, you know, adhere to what the current environment is like. So yes. Final pointer of the night. And for those that are joining us online, please feel free to type out any questions that you might have or comment. We will be more than happy to address that. But parting shot from you, Desmond.
My parting shot, I think, will be very simple. I think Gen Zs have not broken the workplace. I think they arrived and they've been bold enough to say the truth about it. And I think there are very key learnings that we as leaders and we as the different organizations that we represent, we can be able to pick up from the noise or from the feedback that we're given from this generation. Each generation has been saying it, and you feel bad that the Gen Zs in your office right now are very loud, then you as the Gen Z, the next generation that is coming to you to manage is going to be louder. So just prepare for it, because I don't think if the systemic issues are not fixed, then the problems will still continue and will remain the same.
Fantastic close from you. I think for me, it is actually adding on to what you said. Every generation within the workplace is important. Pointing fingers against various generations is actually unproductive because every generation has a lot to offer. The older generations, the boomers, they will give us a good view of how things used to be, the challenges they used to have, and how that has actually evolved to what we have today. And the thing about technology, it evolved so quickly that it doesn't matter if you're a Gen Z or a millennial or an X, you can actually find yourself playing catch up because the technology is too advanced from one day to the next. So we need to actually realize the strengths that each generation has to offer and use that to our strengths. As organizations, we need to walk away from the labels because performance by a Gen Z and performance, if someone is hitting their targets, it has nothing to do if they're a Gen Z, X, or millennial. They did the job. So they should get the credit for the job that they have done. So we need to reevaluate how we are running our organizations and step away from, you know, a million and one meetings. There are people that actually get their energy from meetings. Others, you're draining them. So we need to see what's working, what's not. It's a tricky balance, but custom make it to suit you. Any other thing you would like to say, Des, as we come to the close?
Nothing. I think I'm grateful for this opportunity. It's always a good conversation with you. And yes, I think I'm opening it up as a conversation that can be hard across the different socials and, as people continue to engage. But grateful for this chat. Yeah.
I am very grateful and for having you tonight as we tackle tonight's topic. It can be a bit controversial. I like the fact that we are calling out each and every on each side. So we're not just saying that one generation is better than the other. We're just calling out what needs to be called out. Tonight was episode 9 of season 3, and it has been a very engaging topic. Please feel free to engage with us on our individual LinkedIn profiles, and don't hate on us. We were just having a conversation. um, share share the link with your friends, colleagues, either on LinkedIn or on the Unplugged with Ross YouTube channel. Daisy, thank you very much for your feedback, where you say just because you didn't have it doesn't mean everyone else shouldn't. Yes, that is what we stand by. Yeah. And until next time, I will see you on the next episode of Unplugged with Ross. I wish you a lovely night and hope to see you next time. Thank you for your patronage. Thanks and good night.
Right.